If you're watching this on YouTube right now, come to the website pigpuncher.com/live, make an account, and use the chat here. It's way better. I'll actually be seeing your messages. So yeah, let's get into it. Vosh has no monopoly on Doyle. All can enjoy shitting upon him. Thank you, Xeno Arid. You have your word is actually worth a lot because you're a tier 4 sub in his stream. So, all right, everybody. No more fucking around. We're going to get into this John Doyle video. 5 questions for pro-choice people. Right off the bat, I just want to point out this guy's set. Holy shit. When people told me he was a boomer LARPer, I didn't really know what they meant, but Jesus Christ. So, he's wearing a suit. Now, alright. He's got 75,000 subscribers. If you want to be super professional and wear a suit in your videos, alright, yeah, okay. I can give you that. He's got some propaganda up, some like World War II, kind of like, well, I guess this wouldn't be World War II propaganda. Is your washroom breeding Bolsheviks? Amazing. This is good old capitalist propaganda. Don't let the shadow touch them. Buy war bonds. This is like a war bonds poster with like the Nazi swastika kind of like, as a shadow. Don't let it touch the American children. Cool. Maybe he's not a Nazi, although he did make a video called Why Nazism is Leftist. So, I hear a lot of Nazis making that claim. And then he has like an M1 Grand on his wall. And I'll be honest, it's a pretty damn good looking M1 Grand. I imagine it can't be like an actual prop, or if it's like a real M1 Grand that was used in World War II or World War I, well, I guess it was a World War II thing. Nice. It looks very clean. It looks like it never saw a battle. And then like an army helmet on, like a military helmet on his wall. So pretty obsessed with World War II. It looks like very interesting. He's got a bobblehead of Jesus on his desk, which is not good. He's got like, is that a French flag? On his mug he has like a shitty drawn French flag that says Pioneer on it, so I guess he has French heritage maybe. I'm not sure what that's a reference to. You guys in chat or the comments can tell me. He's got a Tesla sticker. There's like a lobster. Yeah, so there's like a lobster thing there. Is that a Jordan Peterson reference, or did I not like get it? Okay. Enjoy capitalism, which I guess you can't see because the Press Gamer Reparation Fund is covering it, but here you can see enjoy capitalism, so that's okay. And a Donald Trump tweet, and a couple of other things. A Smith & Wesson sticker. That's a gun company, I believe. Okay. I think I know what we're in for. Oh boy. Don't send me too many comments this stream, because I'm going to be focusing on actually responding, but let's get into it.
Obviously, abortion is dominating the news cycle as more and more states pass legislation that would prevent women from being able to undergo the procedure at their convenience, and I just have 5 questions for people that during all of this have remained pro-abortion, so stay tuned.
Okay, I want to cover the convenience thing. Abortion, in my opinion, should be seen as something that just... Oh, yeah, it's quiet. Sorry about that. Abortion, in my opinion, is something that should be available as just a health service. Abortion should be something that if a woman wants to get it, she should be able to get it. It's a procedure that is directly based with women's health. Should be free. Should come with healthcare. It's healthcare. So this whole argument on whether or not women should be allowed to get it always pisses me off, because it's really just an argument that a bunch of crusty old dudes are making, or fucking this guy, are making to try to keep women from having access to, well, healthcare. What the fuck? What is this? Oh. 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 I was told that he was a boomer LARPer by a lot of people. I didn't know it was this bad. This isn't boomer LARPing. This is baby boomer LARPing. Like, I like how we use boomer now just to refer to, like, people who are older than, like, 25 or 30. But this is baby boomer LARPing. Like, this is... I have to assume that when he says make America great again, because he's obviously a Trump supporter, he has a literal Trump tweet like on the back of his laptop. This is what he wants to go back to, like the housewife. Hold on, let's go back, let's rewatch this.
Remained pro-abortion, so stay tuned.
He does look like the screaming Sonic kid. He kind of does. You're right about that. Okay. If he owns that car, by the way, let's just acknowledge that. So, you know, he comes home. Mind you, don't ignore the ADT sign in the bushes that you can't see because my webcam's in the way. There's an ADT sign there. I'm pretty sure ADT wouldn't have been a thing back in the fucking 50s or 60s, or 40s. This looks more 40s. You know, your daughter comes up and, you know, just you pick her up and you give her a kiss because you've come home from work. You know, catch the football from, I guess, your son, maybe, in the background. I don't think it was his wife who threw it at him. That wouldn't be very traditional gender roles of him, or of her, I guess. You know, your wife, your stay-at-home wife who stays home stays home barefoot, cooking pies for you all day while you're at work so you can have a big old dinner to come home to. Gives you a kiss on the, wait. He takes out a cigarette from, like, a little fucking cigarette tin.
John Doyle in.
And she lights it for him. Oh, wait, hold on. What was that? Hold on.
John Doyle in. Heck off, commie.
Heck off, commie. I guess it's in the title here, so I shouldn't have been surprised, but I didn't realize how bad that was. That's his sister. I wouldn't be surprised. I cannot confirm nor deny if that was his sister. Okay, I get what people were saying when they said boomer LARPing, because this might be some of the cringiest shit I've ever seen in my life. And I've already been streaming for 12 minutes, and we're only 28 seconds into the first video. We're off to a pretty good start.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Heck Off Commie. In recent conversations that I've been having with people about abortion, one thing that I've always been asked is, well, what would happen if you got a girl pregnant right now? Would you still be pro-life then? And
okay, so the what if argument, like what if you were in this situation, generally doesn't work too well, and that's why I hate when people make it. This is an issue I have with a lot of, like, liberals and whatnot. Mind you, I am a leftist, so I criticize liberals quite a bit. Even though I agree with liberals on a lot of things, you know, such as being pro-life, or pro-choice, I find that a lot of liberals hold beliefs that are good, but they don't know how to support them. They're very bad at making arguments in support of these views. And so I find that whenever a conservative, like this guy, brings up, well, when a lot of pro-choice people bring up this argument and they take it apart and like, well, yeah, but that's not really a good argument for being pro-choice. So we're gonna hopefully present some better arguments than any that he's heard in this video.
I think that this question is dishonest. I also think it's fairly common, especially for young people that believe in the right to life of children in the womb. And I really despise that question because...
Hold on, he's talking fucking fast. What? Is this the first time I'm ever gonna have to, like, slow down a video instead of speed it up?
Still be pro-life then? And I think that this question is dishonest. I also think it's fairly common, especially for young people that believe in the right to life of children in the womb.
Thinks it's very common for people who believe in the right for life of children in the womb. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, granted, it's a pretty dumb argument. Saying the what if is it's a feels argument. I can agree with that. But I do imagine that most conservatives, like teens who don't have the ability to support a family, if they ended up getting their girlfriend pregnant, if they could get a girlfriend or have sex with a woman, because believe it or not, conservatives generally have a pretty hard time getting laid, because, you know, if you go around hating women all day and shitting on feminism and saying, you know, feminism is the worst, kind of hard to get into a woman's pants, but, you know, to each his own. But if you did manage to do that, I imagine most teenage conservatives would probably flip on the pro-choice thing pretty quick. I find that a lot of conservatives are just right-wingers in general. They don't tend to practice what they preach very much. Lauren Southern is a very good example of someone who's a huge hypocrite, someone who spent most of her young life preaching all this like women should stay in the house, they shouldn't seek a career and whatnot, yet seeking a career and not staying in the house. But, you know, I mean... We'll see what he has to argue against these good old pro-choice arguments.
The womb. And I really despise that question because, and this is where the leftist keyboard warriors chime in, Doyle refuses to answer the question. Doyle, he's dodging the question. It's like, in the video I posted...
Oh, God, he looks like a nerdier Chris Ray Gun. I just realized that. I really don't like that we're already getting a straw man right off the bat. That kind of sucks. This is going to be fun.
Refuting all the pro-abortion arguments that I could find when I finally got to the burning building hypothetical. And I guess I didn't answer the question. That's not because, it would have defeated me with facts and logic. It's like I honestly thought that we could all just establish a consensus that the question was dumb because it does not prove the point that the guy thinks that it does. Would I save a 5-year-old boy or a box of 1,000 human embryos? The 5-year-old boy. But just because I would save the boy does not mean that the lives of the embryos don't have value.
No, that's not the argument anyone makes. No one makes the argument that let's say 8,000 human embryos comparable to a 5-year-old boy. 8,000 for starters, 8,000 human embryos. There's obviously the fact that the majority of pregnancies, I think it's the majority of pregnancies end up like miscarrying before the woman even realizes they were pregnant. They just have like a heavier period. I'm pretty sure that's the case. So not only would like a quarter of those embryos even have the potential to end up resulting in a semi-successful pregnancy, but there's also a lot of other things that could go in. So, all right, 800 human embryos, maybe 250 make it, maybe even another fraction of those end up making. Not a guaranteed person. An embryo isn't really a person, scientifically speaking. A 5-year-old child, on the other hand, already someone who's been born, is already cognizant of what's going on around them. They can actually feel pain. They have a working brain process. Maybe they're already starting to learn. They have relationships with people beyond just sort of existing inside of them as sort of like a leech. They're not very much comparable. So yes, I think most people would absolutely save the 5-year-old child. And that does prove that while yes, you may want to make some sort of argument about how, well, technically those embryos could end up being hundreds of people. The 5-year-old child is a child that already exists. Most people don't look at an embryo and see that as a person because they aren't. Not yet.
The conclusion that he was drawing from this hypothetical is that because everyone would opt to save the 5-year-old, that the lives of the embryos therefore have no value because no one thinks that they're the same thing. This is a false dichotomy. That's why I offered an alternative hypothetical.
Well, no. You've even said yourself that at the very least, maybe the embryo lives don't... I wouldn't say the embryo lives don't have any value, but they aren't necessarily alive, I guess. And they definitely don't have as much value as the 5-year-old child. Most people believe this. You even do. You do. You've even said yourself you would take the child. And it may not be because... And your reasoning isn't that, well, the embryos have no value, but they do have less. For obvious reasons.
Which was just, what if it were just an embryo on the ground in front of you and you had to either step on it or not step on it? Does its life have value or does it not? And the thing is, yes, embryos are not the same as 5-year-olds.
Wait, what? Oh, okay, no. So in the case of like step on it or don't step on it or save it or don't save it, these are two fucking incomparable examples. In the burning building scenario, this is a scenario where you have to act in order to save one of them, or if you don't act, they both die. However, in the step on the fetus scenario, if you don't act, the fetus is fine, or the embryo is fine. I mean, it's on a fucking sidewalk, so it's probably gonna dry up like a little lollipop sitting in the sun all day, but it doesn't die from you stepping on it if you walk by. You have to go out of your way to kill it, and no one argues that the embryo has no value, but it has less of a value than an already living child. Pretty simple. He's strawmanning the leftist argument, by the way. I didn't catch that earlier. He says leftists all the time. Conservatives love to label everybody they disagree with, or just anyone who's on the left, as a leftist, when usually it's liberals they're talking about. Liberals are not leftist. It's so annoying when conservatives make don't make this distinction, because liberals are like always pro-capitalism. Like the furthest left liberal that I can think of are the like social democrats. These are pretty far left liberals, but most liberals are 100% for capitalism. Destiny is a pretty good example. Heck, liberals. Hell yeah, Trace.
No one is claiming that they are in the first place. If a woman's life is in danger as a result of her pregnancy,
Hold on, let's rewind a little bit. I want to make sure I know his whole argument.
or does it not? And the thing is, yes, embryos are not the same as 5-year-olds, but no one is claiming that they are in the first place. If a woman's life is in danger as a result of her pregnancy, say the baby starts to develop in the fallopian tube, you will not find a single prominent pro-life activist that would argue that the woman's right to life has to end because of the pregnancy abnormality causing severe health problems.
Nope. Oh, no, 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 no. You don't get to argue that people don't have that personal belief. The thing that we're actually arguing is that is what will happen. When lawmakers in Alabama make abortion illegal under any circumstance, it doesn't matter if their personal belief is a woman should still be able to get an abortion. If they make it 100% illegal, even if they get one out of state, they can't get an abortion in that scenario. I don't care how these politicians feel. What matters is the laws that they pass and what actually ends up happening in the real world, not in the hypothetical, well, this is what they actually believe world. In Alabama right now, if that scenario were to happen, well, fuck the woman, she dies. That's what happens, unless they go out of state and risk the law. Because I believe that you can also get arrested if you get an abortion out of state. So that's completely false, like a completely shit argument right off the bat.
If the woman's life will end by having her see the pregnancy to term, the woman's life is prioritized, obviously, especially because
not in Alabama or the states that you brought up at the beginning of this video. You need to address that.
Because the baby likely would not have survived anyways. So here's the difference. A pregnancy being an explicit threat to your life is not the same as a pregnancy being inconvenient to your life.
No, okay. Already, straw manning, inconvenient. Bad terminology, all right? It is not inconvenient for a teenage girl who's like 15 years old to get pregnant. Let's give a scenario here. We'll give it an example. If a teenage girl, 15 years old, gets raped and she gets pregnant, it is not an inconvenience to have the child. In most scenarios, it is actually life-ruining, life-threatening even to have the child, especially that young. But on top of that, teenagers don't have the ability most of them, don't have the ability to support a child. Their life will be crippled having to support a child. Teenagers generally should try to seek out a career and stable income and a steady lifestyle before they're going to have a child. Now, obviously, you would respond to this by saying, well, they should, exercise some responsibility and use protection or not not have sex at all. For starters, abstinence doesn't work. Teenagers will always fuck. It's just what happens. And on top of that, protection doesn't always work. Pregnancies will happen. And then obviously there's a case of like, if it's a rape, then it's not as simple as just don't have sex. It's not an inconvenience. Pregnancy can absolutely, without being like a physical harm to you, absolutely be life-threatening in your lifestyle. Your lifestyle drastically changing can kill you. If you're poor and you have a child and you can't afford it, well, that's pretty life-threatening.
Not the same at all. Life begins at conception. You don't get to end a life because it's inconvenient.
No, 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 no. The scientific community disagrees with you on that one, buddy. I know that's you got Jesus right there on your desk, but the scientific community disagrees with you. The life ends at conception argument has been debunked for decades. Absolute decades. So don't give me that. That is completely anti-science what you just said.
To you, and they know that. Of course they know that. Everybody knows that. That's why they manipulate.
Wait, what? Everybody knows that? I mean, the scientists tend to disagree.
Because it's inconvenient to you, and they know that. Of course they know that. Everybody knows that. That's why they manipulate the morality by citing statistical anomalies like rape, incest. But back to the pregnancy question.
Okay, the statistical anomaly, like saying, oh, they're just statistical anomalies. No, the issue is when you have a hard ban on something somewhere, which is what you are supporting, like in Alabama. When there is a hard ban on something, that massively affects those statistical anomalies, such as the rapes, the women who are put in physical danger by having a child, like they could die. They will have to face the consequences of that. It doesn't matter if they're a statistical anomaly. They aren't a number. They're people who will be affected by these things.
question. I despise that question for a few reasons. The first being it implies hypocrisy. They're suggesting that we're only pro-life until we decide that we don't want a child after said child has been conceived, and then we'll be on our way to Planned Parenthood. And this is just so false. We're pro-life.
No, I don't know. Seems like in the way that conservatives sort of act when they, pass laws and bills and whatnot, they don't really care about living people. The meme that, like, oh, conservatives care about a child until they come out of the womb is very true. Look at the way they act. Look at the laws they pass. Look at the way they talk about people. Look at the way that they put the earth in danger by accepting money from lobbyists to keep oil. Like they accept dirty oil money and shit like that, keeping the planet dying. Something that's going to ultimately probably lead to the extinction of the entire human race. Conservatives are not pro-life. They're pro-capitalism. They're pro-money. The only reason why they care about babies, or I should say embryos and fetuses, is because of their holy beliefs, their biblical beliefs, and the fact that they tend to be pretty misogynistic because of their regressive belief system. They want to control women. They want to control women's bodies.
Life, period. It applies to all of us. We accept that label. We know that when we accept the label. That leads us to the second part that I hate, quite frankly, the ignorance of it. The ignorance of the question is that they assume that while we're pro-life on the surface, we aren't practicing abstinence or protected sex at the very least, basically that we have no sexual morality or temperance, and therefore we're just as likely to want abortion access, and this is fundamentally untrue.
Well, no, it's not, actually. Like I brought up before, a lot of conservatives tend not to practice what they preach. Lauren Southern being a pretty damn good example. Yeah, she recently retired, but I don't know, she spent a long time of her young life not practicing what she preached. And I imagine you probably don't either, even though you may talk about it on your YouTube channel. But yeah, no, a lot of conservatives, they're complete hypocrites.
And this is how I'm forced to answer the question like this. I'm like, okay, well, a few things first. And they're like, no, yes or no, would you keep the child? And I have to be like, okay, well,
it is it's a tough question. I know, it's really hard to weasel out of it. Would you keep the child? Well, I mean, if you really know, would you keep the child? It's a tough question, really hard to weasel out of, and I imagine that's why it frustrates you.
Assuming I was engaging in sexual intercourse outside the context of a committed relationship during which we were irresponsible enough to create a life that we were not emotionally or financially capable of supporting at this moment in our very young lives, then yes, I would keep it. There's always...
No, I really doubt that. I really don't think that's the case. Granted, this is a hypothetical, but most conservatives would probably, or just most people in general, would be pro-life in that instance. Maybe just for themselves, but I imagine if your entire livelihood, your entire life, your entire lifestyle even, was in danger at the fact that you've had this child, you'd probably be pro-life, especially if it was early on in the pregnancy. And as you said before, you don't see a 5-year-old child and a embryo as equal, having equal value at the very least. You've admitted it yourself with the hypothetical. You may not think the embryo has no value, but maybe it has just a small enough amount of value that maybe you would seek out an abortion in order to benefit yourself, the ability to continue living the lifestyle that you've dreamed of, or even just not being poor.
Always more context to the discussion, and the answer will always be yes. But to someone that supports abortion, that's a dishonest answer, because they don't seem to be able to comprehend the existence of lifestyles that avoid situations that would allow abortion to even be argued for in the first place.
Well, no, because statistically it just doesn't happen. Abstinence doesn't work. It just doesn't. Statistically speaking, they teach abstinence a shit ton in schools, which is really fucking stupid. Yet we're not seeing a lot of abstinence being practiced. Teenagers are going to have sex. What you should teach them is, where to get protection, how to have safe sex, things like that. And then, of course, always having the final backup of if a woman ends up getting pregnant and she is not prepared in order to have this pregnancy, to seek out an abortion. And a lot of these conservatives tend to think that they tend to think that, oh yeah, I could totally practice abstinence, but you know that if they could actually get laid, they would probably be in these situations way more.
Just don't like abortion, don't have one. Don't want kids, don't have sex. They're like, wait, no fair. And someone accused
no. Okay, so for starters, sex is like Okay, sex and abortion's not comparable. Not comparable arguments, buddy. So sex is a physical act that you do with another person, driven by physical emotion that you feel for them. And something that, if you have the proper education, you can use protection, practice safe sex, and you're going to be okay. Abortion, on the other hand, is an act that you go about in order to, it's health. It's almost like, what's a better comparison here? This is basically what he's saying. All right, let me give you a good example. If you don't like getting surgery, then don't break your leg. I mean, that's basically what it's saying. Like, because these aren't comparable at all. It's a pretty dumb argument.
Gives me that's appeal to nature. It's appeal to nature fallacy last time I made that argument, which is stupid. Appeal to nature would be if you got pregnant and I say the pregnancy is inherently good because it's natural. I never claimed that it was good for you. In fact, most of what I've said is that it's been particularly inconvenient for you, and I wish that you would have been.
Yes, you're not. That's how you're doing it. You're kind of like you're kind of diluting the severity of a pregnancy by saying, "Oh, it's just inconvenient. You just care about the inconvenience." No, a pregnancy can be anything from physically life-ending to ending a lifestyle that you're trying to strive for, even putting you down so far to the point where you can't get by, you can't survive. You're going to be forced to live in poverty. Most teen pregnancies end pretty badly whenever the child is brought to term. A lot of the time, the parents will, especially if they're Christian conservative parents, will disown the child, or disown the woman usually. And then a lot of the times the male, the guy who got her pregnant will leave, and she'll be stuck raising a single child. It happens. It's what happened to my mom. So yeah, I mean, it's not just an inconvenience. It can be absolutely life-ruining. Stop trying to dilute the severity of the problem.
More responsible, but your convenience does not trump someone else's right to life.
Stop saying convenience. He's just going to keep saying it over and over again. He's completely wrong. It is not convenience
that you're trying to make against me is what I'm saying is, a child has a right to life because it was created naturally. Therefore, my thinking is illogical because appeal to nature. No.
Well, no, you're not appealing to nature. I mean, a lot of people do appeal to nature whenever they try to argue against pro-choiceism. You're appealing towards religion. Like, you have a Jesus bobblehead on your desk. The reason behind your beliefs is a religious-based one. You won't come out and say it. You'll throw out all the shitty, because God made the baby, whatever arguments. You'll try to act like you're super objective, factually speaking with all your arguments, but your beliefs are really based around religion, and you know it.
A bit of a red herring. If that were a coherent argument, then no one would be able to rationalize their own right to life, because since we're all created naturally, it's just appeal to nature. Give me a break. The child has a right to life because it is alive. I think that you could argue.
Well, no. Scientific community disagrees with you there. An embryo is not living in the same way that a 5-year-old child is living. The physical body of it, like life itself, here's the big hot take. Here's the pig puncher hot take. Something being alive doesn't necessarily make its life, in my opinion, doesn't make its life more valuable than like anything else. All life is not created equal, in my opinion. An ant, I think most of us would agree, a cockroach or an ant is not equal to an elephant or a tiger. Can we all agree with that? They're living, but they have different levels, I guess, of consciousness. A cockroach doesn't have the ability to, I'm pretty sure they don't have the ability to feel pain. They don't have the same ability of thought and consciousness as something like a tiger or an elephant, something with higher brain function, higher just physical functionality as a whole. However, and this is the same case with an embryo, Lobasta Man with the $2 says, "Are you ever going to debate flamenco?" Eventually, if he stops harassing my community. However, a embryo is a developing person, a potentially developed person. They do not have a functioning nervous system. They don't have the ability to think and feel. We're talking about an embryo here. A fetus and an embryo are very different things. An embryo is quite literally a clump of cells. It's forming into something. So it would have the same value, I guess you could say, to maybe an ant or a cockroach at that point. However, a 5-year-old child is very different because, well, it can think, it can feel, it has a fully developed human body, most likely. So these aren't comparable. Life doesn't make something worthy of living necessarily, or equal. We exercise this in our daily lives. You probably stomp a cockroach when you see one, or you don't care if you accidentally step on an ant when you're walking down the street. Embryos are cockroaches, Pig Puncher 2019. Spread that around. I want it all over Twitter.
Argue that in vitro fertilization isn't particularly natural, but that child still has a right to life. Well, but those are always planned. Again, it's not about convenience. It's about life.
Well, no, not convenient. Stop. Well, he's just watering it down again. I've already made the whole argument about why his using the word convenience is bad. But yes, if somebody tried to get like an in vitro fertilization, that's very different than a natural pregnancy. Very, very different.
Convenience is irrelevant. And honestly, the fact that you even think
it's not irrelevant.
It's relevant in the first place, like that you bring up, well, it's inconvenient. It's incredibly narcissistic. Moving forward.
Well, no one's saying it's inconvenient. It can be literally life-threatening. Maybe not in like the physical, the embryo is caught in my fucking tubes and it's gonna fucking kill me and I'm gonna end up dying from sepsis. It's not that kind of life-threatening, but life-threatening to the style of life that you live. And when I say lifestyle, I'm not talking about, maybe I end up being middle class instead of upper middle class. I'm talking about not being able to afford or just not being able to go to college, get a college education, maybe not even being able to finish high school to get a degree, being forced to live in poverty your whole life, and probably not even being able to support the child. And then further, your child is going to grow up from a very poor family and thus going to be poor themselves and be more likely to continue this cycle. People like you making arguments like this, passing bills and making laws are what are preserving and pushing this like entire impoverished population in this country further, keeping them from being able to escape poverty. This is just one way in which they do it, but it's people like you that are responsible for this. God,
so I've got 5 questions that I would like answered by pro-abortion people in no particular order of importance.
Call it pro-life. Don't call it pro-abortion.
And so my first question would be, do you not agree that the life in the womb is valid, or is it that you don't even agree that it's a life?
The life in the womb is not as valid, or it has less value than it would have further on. So, for example, I believe that an embryo at 2 weeks in has less value than an embryo 3 weeks in. I mean, it's not much. Like a fetus and an embryo, the fetus has more value. A child has way more value. However, the life or the well-being of the already born and existing woman who is pregnant with the child will always have more value than the child inside of her. Then obviously there's the fact that as the pregnancy gets further in, maybe let's give another example, because a lot of people like to bring up this argument. What if the baby is a week out from being born and has ends up dying, or is going to be a failed pregnancy inside of her stomach, or maybe the woman isn't going to be able to survive the pregnancy? What if a late stage abortion is necessary? Is the baby's life equal, just as valuable as the woman's life? Would you let the woman give birth and die for the baby to live? Obviously no. The baby still doesn't have as much value as the woman, because in my opinion, even a baby isn't 100% going to end up being a person. There is a percentage of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, could get sick, could never grow up to end up being a person. Most adults probably contribute to society more so than a baby does. So if you're going to choose between the life of a baby and the life of a full-grown adult, who is the one that has the baby inside them, I would choose the full-grown adult. Maybe I'm a piece of shit for that. I don't care. That's my take on it.
Is it that you acknowledge that what is inside of the womb is a life, but you reject the validity of its right to be alive?
No, I believe it's a life, but I don't think that life makes it worthy of living over another life, especially if that life is of a higher form, I guess you could say.
Do you just not agree that it's a life in the first place, therefore it couldn't possibly have a right to be alive?
Well, I mean, an embryo isn't a life, for starters. Embryo isn't a life. A fetus, yeah, I'd say it starts being a life at a fetus. A baby, yeah, it's a life, but I'm, not as valid as an adult or something further along.
The reason this question is important is because it narrows down the separation. If it's the former, that they don't recognize the validity of the life, or the
Wait,
latter.
hold on, let me rewind that. I was reading some chat. 18th century families killed babies that they couldn't care for? Yeah.
Inside of the womb is a life, but you reject the validity of its right to be alive? Or do you just not agree that it's a life in the first place, therefore it couldn't possibly have a right to be alive? The reason this question is important is because it narrows down the separation. If it's the former, that they don't recognize the validity of the life, or the latter, that they don't recognize that it's even a life in the first place. So abortion activists have actually largely moved away.
He's just gish galloping here. He's saying a lot of words, but there's no... He's saying a lot of things and nothing at the same time. Like, we've already covered everything. He's basically just going into more detail about that question. He's saying nothing right now. Yeah, is he vegan? Yeah, his morals would be completely out of whack if he wasn't vegan. I'm not vegan, and I'm still pro, so I guess I don't know. Let's continue.
Away from arguing the latter, because it would dictate that if we could biologically establish that what's growing inside of the woman is a life, then abortion would be immoral. And since it's fairly simple to establish that, it's not...
No, we already talked about it. Sure, it's a life, and once it becomes a fetus, it's a life, sure, but not more valid than a full-grown woman who's carrying the pregnancy.
Advantage to play that game. So they've shifted most of their strategy to pushing the argument that abortion's, it's right because it's what I want, it's my choice. And, some might say, well,
yeah, okay, so here's the thing. This is a valid argument. All right, I know I complain about liberals making this argument a lot, but it's a valid argument. It is a woman's body, and she should have the right to control it. She shouldn't be forced to carry another person inside of her. It's pretty fucked when you think about it. The government can make you create another human being against your will. It's pretty fucked when you really think about it. But then someone like him would say, well, that's just a feels argument. But just because it's a feels argument doesn't mean it's any less valid. The problem is these people can't be swayed with feels arguments. They have no soul. They are incapable of empathizing, especially with women. So that's why whenever I argue, I never make these arguments. But yes, the my body, my choice argument is valid, but not when you're debating people like this who have no soul or any empathy in order to feel anything for you. They don't care about women. They hate women. They don't care about women's bodily autonomy.
It's my choice. And, some might say, well, abortion is wrong, but it's still a woman's choice. And then my question to those people would be, do you or do you not agree that the law ought to reflect the morality of the society? If the
Nope. You do not get your moral systems from a law. If you get your moral beliefs from the law, or you think that the law should reflect your moral beliefs, what the fuck are you doing? Would you really... Like, it's like when religious people say, well, murder's bad because God said so. Well, I don't think God ever said murder was bad. In many cases, I'm pretty sure God thought murder was justified if you've read the Bible. So are you saying that if the law wasn't there, then you would have nothing wrong morally with doing it? Sounds a little... Yikes.
child is alive, then it has a right to life, and that takes precedence over your choice. If that child is alive, then its life is valid. That's objective. Progressivism, it's actually quite self-defeating in practice, because here they are.
Well, no, it's not. Progressivism is just going to happen. People like you are getting in the way. It is not regressive in nature or redundant in any way.
They're trying to establish that the validity of life is relative, and that idea is supposed to be a progressive idea. You see, to make progress, we need to have objectivity. We need to be able to say we were objectively there, and now we are objectively here. Net gain.
We're not talking about philosophy here, okay? Or like, we're talking about like real world things that happen in a progressed society, in a good society that people should want to live in. A group of people based only on their sexual organs should not be forced to create another human being inside of them against their will by the government. That's very authoritarian, and it's fucked. That's basically what the argument comes down to. But you want to argue like the philosophy and all that bullshit. I hate arguing philosophy. That's why this video is so fucking boring to me.
Gain equals progress, and when everything's relative, you can't do that. You can't objectively establish progress. The whole idea of it being a woman's choice mandates that the validity of life in the womb must be relative.
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of is. Also, he slid past it. He mentioned it earlier, but he kind of slid past it. You may be morally against, for whatever reason, abortion, but the argument of if you don't like it, then don't get one is completely valid. It's a completely valid argument. He's never given a reason why this is a bad argument, so... I'm sorry, but I fucking hate philosophy. The philosophy shit's boring as shit to me. I like arguing like real shit, you know what I mean?
If it were objectively existent or non-existent, you could either kill it or you could not kill it. Framing the argument as if each woman can decide whether or not her child's life is valid undermines the innate value of human life. A mother gets an ultrasound at 8 weeks and cries tears of joy. Another mother gets an ultrasound at 8 weeks and schedules an abortion appointment.
Sure. The mother who schedules an abortion appointment, if she can, because if she's in Alabama, wants to carry the child. The woman who, or does not want to carry the child, I'm sorry, the woman who cries tears of joy wants to carry the child. She is not being forced by the government against her will to carry it. That's the difference. We're not taught, like, this fucking why am I even arguing the philosophy with him? Can we just argue, like, the real shit? This guy's a piece of shit who wants to take away women's access to women's healthcare, you know? That's what's happening here. Lobistan Man with the $2 says, all moral beliefs are based on philosophy. So, yeah, I suppose so, but I don't like discussing it, is what I'm saying. I never said I don't like philosophy. I hate discussing it. It's boring to me. Yeah, but abortion is also a philosophical topic. As Vosh said, when life begins, it's a philosophical claim, so it's kind of important to argue from time to time. Well, I'm not saying it's not important. I find it boring. I didn't say it was important. I said I prefer arguing, like, more grounded shit, like, here's why Nazis are wrong about this thing, rather than, like, the philosophy behind what makes life more valid, what should you base your moral principles on. It's important to talk about, but I also find it boring. That was my claim. I know some of you guys will have an issue with that, but that's all I said.
Which is wrong? Or is there no right or wrong? You know, if it's their right to choose, therefore there's no objective morality? Gotcha. In my own experience,
No, there is no objective morality. Of course there's no objective morality. Does anybody in chat think there's any such thing as objective morality? You wouldn't even agree. You have a bunch of fucking World War II paraphernalia up on your wall. You know what that gun behind you is used for, right? Killing. You think murder is wrong, I assume, because you're a Christian. I imagine you would say murder is wrong, especially if you get your morals from the law, which you've said earlier that the law should reflect a society's morals. If you think that the law should reflect society's morals, you probably conform to them quite well. You probably think murder is wrong, but there are tons of scenarios where you would justify murder. If you're being physically attacked or aggressed upon, you would absolutely fight back, maybe even kill the person if they intended to kill you. I mean, if you could. I mean, look at you, but you would absolutely do that. Morality is not objective. You have literal war paraphernalia up on your wall. There are absolutely scenarios where you would be able to justify murder, and you probably believe that murder is objectively wrong, although you don't realize that it's wrong. Sorry, we got right there into the fucking philosophy right there. Well, I guess not really. That was more of just calling out something that he's saying. It's just blatantly wrong. We did it. Amazing.
I have yet to speak with someone that would make the argument that the child is categorically not human. Obviously, it's a human. I would hope that we could all agree on that one. Typically...
Well, hold on. He's saying child. That's what they do. They got a lot of really slimy language. That's what you got to look out for. It's the sliminess. They got a lot of slime, these conservatives. Damn, an 9. How many amazings are we about to get? Fuck. We got a 9 combo. Okay. Kazdoom, you're getting banned for breaking the kill or the streak. I'm just kidding. But fuck you though for breaking that streak. Yeah, no, sorry. What was he saying? I gotta hold on.
Human. Obviously, it's a human. I would hope that we could all.
Okay, yeah. He's using the term child. Like, he's using the term child, so he's being very slimy and slippery here. What are you referring to? Are you referring to an embryo being a child? Are you referring to a fetus being a child? Are you referring to a literal child as being a child and having value? Either way, you're wrong, but I just want to clarify, because it seems like the language you're using here is pretty yikes.
all agree on that one. Typically, things don't change their species during development, to my knowledge at least. From there, we have to ask, is it alive? Google has dead defined as no longer alive. Life is defined as the condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, including capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change preceding death.
Yep, so that includes everything from ants, or everything from literal bacteria to people. Like me. Like everything from bacteria to me and you. That is what the definition of life encompasses. And I'm pretty sure you kill a lot of bacteria every day. You do it when you wash your hands. Or clean your house.
Also the existence of an individual human being or animal. An unborn child isn't a sperm. It's not an egg. It's an individual human being. It's got its own genetic code.
That does not qualify it as having more value than even... You know what else has genetic code? And isn't even alive? Oh boy, that was a dumb argument. That was such an anti-scientific argument. What's something that isn't, by definition, alive that has genetic code? Viruses. Literal viruses aren't alive and have genetic codes. That little genetic code thing right there, anti-science as fuck. Got him. Oh yeah, you did call it out, Green Element. Good for you. You called out viruses. Nice.
It has its own blood type. Just because it requires a certain environment to survive does not invalidate its life. If you're saying that because
well, I mean, bacteria, everything requires a certain environment to survive. No one's making that argument. No one's making that argument. The problem is that, literally, there's, the one specific environment where a embryo or fetus can survive off of. It's literally, it's basically living as a parasite. And it is, by definition, a parasitic relationship. I know it sounds rough, but if we look at the actual definition of... I know it sounds like a meme calling a fetus or whatever a child, but a parasitic relationship, by definition, is one in which one organism, the parasite, lives off the other organism, the host, harming it and possibly causing death. Now, there are also... So basically, the baby is, leeching off of the woman. The woman is giving all of her... nutrients, all of her energy into creating this creature that is one-sidedly living off of them. There are also mutual relationships. I can't fucking type. A mutualistic relationship is when two organisms of different species work together, each benefiting from the relationship. Or it doesn't have to be two different species, but generally it is. There is no way in which a woman benefits, physically, from having a baby inside them. Right? They are losing their energy. They are losing their nutrients. The baby isn't, producing anything that benefits the woman, except, I guess, hormones that's not produced by the baby. It is, by definition, a baby growing inside of you is, by definition, a parasitic relationship, scientifically speaking. That's why, so we're not talking about, it requires certain circumstances. It requires a parasitic relationship with the woman.
Specific circumstances.
I guess there's also trans men who can get pregnant. The right to abortion is also a trans rights topic when it comes to trans men. Trying to teach a biology, good luck. Yeah, conservatives are anti-science in every way, by definition, anti-science. So you're right. It's kind of a lost cause.
In order to survive, then B, its life is not valid. We can test that argument.
Well,
though.
Its life isn't not valid. It's not more valid than the woman's. For example, if we go back to the parasitic relationship example, the life of a parasite is usually not seen as more valuable than the life of the host in most cases. So, for example, let's say stomach worms or heartworms, for example. Heartworms are a parasitic thing that lives inside of dogs usually. When they eat shit, other dog shit that has the worm eggs in them, and they have heartworms. You don't consider the lives of those heartworms, even though they have their own genetic code. They are by definition living. You don't consider the heartworms inside your dog more worthy of life than the dog itself. Because they're parasitic. Same as with a fetus or even an embryo being developed inside of a woman.
We can't colonize the sun. Why not? Because we require specific circumstances to survive. According to your
Not a valid comparison. This is literally this is not a valid comparison. Everything he's about to say until he finishes this hypothetical, just plug your ears and don't listen to it. He's about to say humans can't live on the sun because we require a certain environment in order to survive. Not comparable to a baby growing in the womb in a parasitic relationship with a mother who literally requires taking from the other living being it's living with. Just plug your ears. Don't listen to this shitty, non-valid argument he's about to make.
Your reasoning, our life is invalid, which I would hope that we both reject. So either you're wrong about B, or you're wrong that it's A that justifies B, or you can accept that by arguing for B, you have justified A.
None of this is valid. Literally none of this is even worth acknowledging. I've already disproved all of it.
Brings me to my next question, which is convenience a precedent that you are comfortable with establishing?
Again with the convenience. Holy shit. Can he stop saying convenient? He's purposefully watering down the language. They do this a lot. You know who else does it? Who this guy is obviously a fan of? This guy is definitely a big Ben Shapiro fan. And Ben Shapiro loves to water down phrasing and just use certain phrases that like make people feel like their argument matters something. So when Ben Shapiro says a man pretending to be a woman when referring to a trans woman, even though that is scientifically not what a trans woman is, the people in the argument are like, yeah, just a man pretending to be a woman, and they feel like Ben Shapiro is right, and Ben Shapiro feels like he's right. He's doing something very similar here to what Ben Shapiro does when he says like convenience. It is not convenience. That is not what the argument anyone's making. You're strawmanning the entire argument here.
That by arguing for B, you have justified A. That brings me to my next question, which is convenience a precedent that you are comfortable with establishing? Again, at least 85% of...
I mean, we consider the convenience of a lot of things more valuable, even if we do. Listen, obviously this isn't even a valid question. His entire question could be written off right now. We could just skip through everything he's about to say here. Completely. We can skip through everything about he's about to say here because it's wrong on so many levels. So he's bringing up the stats of like, here's how many fucking abortions and pregnancy or whatever pregnancies results are from rape or are from incest or whatever, or are deadly to the mother. This doesn't matter because what he's arguing for and praising is the hard ban of abortions. So this statistical anomaly, as he says, will be massively affected by this in a literal they will die kind of way, not in like a convenience kind of way like he's trying to say. So I could write off this entire argument, but even within this argument it's not valid because yes, the convenience of these women does matter. The convenience of somebody who has a leech on them, like say like a literal leech, like just grabs onto your skin and it's like sucking blood out of you. The leech will die if it can't suck the blood from something. Yet you rip the leech off of you and you probably crush it or cover it in salt, even though it probably wouldn't kill you. A leech sucking on you 24 hours a day, one little leech probably won't kill you. But hey, it's inconvenient to have it on you, so you take it off and you probably stomp it or at the very least throw it away and deprive it of its food source. Yes, convenience is a precedent that you can set. That's a completely valid argument to make. Although everything he's saying here, none of it is valid.
Abortions on a national scale are for convenience. I've heard as high as 90% before, but we'll be conservative with the data here. To break out the letters again, if abortion is justified, A, because it's convenient to you, B, then you're arguing that B is a valid means to reach the ends of A. But this also means that...
Okay, just ignore all this. None of this matters. Literally none of this is valid. None of what he's saying here holds any water and doesn't deserve a response. I've already debunked the framework on which he's built in order to build up to this question. I already debunked all of it, so there's no reason to even acknowledge what he's saying here. But I mean, we'll continue. So, abortion is there's someone named John Doyle as chat. I don't know if it's really John Doyle, but if it is John Doyle, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you do. I'm taking apart the argument. So. Let's rewind a little bit. I accidentally talked over him a bit. We'll rewind because I want everyone to hear the entirety of his argument.
Scale are for convenience. I've heard as high as 90% before, but we'll be conservative with the data here. To break out the letters again, if abortion is justified, A, because it's convenient to you, B, then you're arguing that B is a valid means to reach the ends of A. But this also...
So, B is valid means to reach the justification of A. So what is convenient to me is justified, and so abortion would be justified. Okay. Yes. convenient in a society where, we want to have like as a conservative would say, polite society. The convenience of a fully grown, developed person is probably more justified than the forced existence of. You are John Doyle? Okay, I'll take your word for it. Than the existence of an embryo or a fetus, which I argue has less of a value than a living child. I know that's like the big hot take, but that's my take.
Means that B can be applied to reach conclusion C. D, whatever. Littering is more convenient than finding a trash can. Is it justified because it's more convenient to me? And I think that this really is the...
So littering is justified because it's more convenient than finding a trash can. John Doyle, prove it, go debate Pig Puncher. I mean, if he wants to debate, we can debate. But so... Is it... So that's an interesting example. Littering. I would argue generally one person littering isn't going to contribute all that much. However... these aren't really comparable. Once again, it's just not a comparable. Like maybe philosophically, if you want to like dig deep into the philosophy of it, maybe. But when we're talking from like a real life like scenario here, whenever you bring up the whole these are just a statistical anomaly here, it doesn't matter if they're a statistical anomaly. All of your like what you're building up here with your argument doesn't really matter because the conclusion that you're arguing for is something that will affect that, granted, a statistical anomaly, yet that doesn't make them less valuable than the non-statistical anomaly, the average, the norm. It doesn't make them less valid, but if the statistical anomaly is still valid, and if you have a hard ban on abortion, such as what Alabama's done, that statistical anomaly is going to be affected. The women who are going to die if they carry out a pregnancy, the women who maybe are raped and forced to carry on a child. Yes, I agree with you. It's rarer. It's pretty rare, but that doesn't make it less valid.
Core of the issue for a lot of pro-choice people. They seem to ignore the validity of the life for their own convenience, and it's disturbing. We've seen this thinking before throughout history. The difference is the slave owners at least had the decency to try to argue that the slaves weren't human. The abortion...
No, wait, what? Wait. Okay. No. A fetus... Okay, an embryo is not human. A fetus, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, can be argued is like a proto-human, I guess you could say. That's probably a pretty good way to word it. However, that's very different from a slave owner trying to justify keeping slaves because, they aren't human. Very, very different. Not comparable. For example, like a slave during like the slave times here in America is a person, scientifically is a person in every way. They have the mental function of a full-grown, I don't need to debate to prove anything, Kami. Oh, boy, John Doyle in chat. Oh, brother. No, these aren't comparable. Also, nice trying to justify... is that a little bit of just trying to justify slavery? I'm not going to say that's the case. John Doyle, I'm going to watch your video in a little bit on if Nazism is leftist. It's not, by the way, and we'll see what comes out of that. I mean, you have an anti-Nazi war bonds poster on the wall. That doesn't mean too much, but we'll see.
Abortion activists just try to argue that the validity of life is subjective. The problem with that is that all of our rights and liberties are derivative of our inherent value as human beings. The moment that you entertain...
Hold on a second. Hold on.
The difference is the slave owners at least had the decency to try to argue that the slaves weren't human. The abortion activists just try to argue that the validity of life is subjective. The problem with that...
It is. Now tell me what the problem with it is.
Is that all of our rights and liberties are derivative of our inherent value as human beings. The moment...
If I was asked the question, you have... If I was asked the question of, okay, you have like a 5-year-old kid, like the train track question, like the trolley question, where it's like you can either you can turn the trolley one way or you can wait, isn't the question like if you have just like a random fat dude sitting on the road and you have like a doctor, Like if you just have your normal citizen with like maybe like an office job, not very valuable to society, and you have a doctor and you're like in a trolley and you can either turn it right or turn it left. One way, if you do nothing, it kills the doctor. Or wait, okay. I would choose the life to save the life of the doctor over the life of just the random person. In my subjective moral system, I believe that a doctor has more value than the doctor's life has more value than than like the random citizen, the random dude on the street. That's my personal moral view. And so yes, I do argue from the idea that life or value of life is subjective. A fetus that is going to cause a deadly pregnancy for a woman who's maybe a doctor is absolutely not more valued than the life of that woman who's carrying the baby who's a doctor. Are you going to do another thing on upper echelon? I wanted a video of this earlier on Google censorship, and the comments were full of literal Nazis. I might do a video on upper echelon. He unironically was like saying a bunch of really just dumb shit at the beginning of his video, and I was just like, at one point he said, including, I think, what was it? He said having lesbians in The Last of Us is virtue signaling, and I was just like, yeah, okay. And I just closed the video. There's just no arguing with dumb gamer dudes sometimes.
The moment that you entertain the idea of our value being subjective, you have sacrificed the reason for your own liberty. But as
No, I have not. Hold on. How many people we got watching? Nice, 170. No, I have not. You can have the idea that morality or value of life is subjective and still believe that all people are created equal and have the right to life. By that, I mean people. Under my moral system, I don't see a fetus or especially not an embryo or a sperm as a people. The argument here is like, if you had to choose between what lives, what dies in a scenario where one of them has to die, the individual who is able to do more good and affect the world more than the other is the one that I would choose to live. It's not very complicated. Sperm are half people. Well, okay, so you brought up earlier, I don't know if you were here for it, John Doyle, but you brought up earlier that a sperm, or not a sperm, an embryo has its own genetic code, it has its own, like, all this shit, but the issue is, there are tons of things that, by definition, are not living, and yet they have those different things that you brought up. For example, viruses. They are by definition non-living, but they have their own genetic code. So it was like a lot of arguments that you brought up there that were not very valid. I'm gonna be having somebody clip this stream and make it into more digestible video if you want to watch that, or you can stick around or rewatch the stream. But we're gonna finish the video.
What is convenient always what is right, or what we should do? And perhaps you might not think so as a general rule, but just this once because you want to be pro-choice, but that's indicative of a major inconsistency within your own morality.
Wait, what? No? Okay. No, I've already established several times under my moral system that the value of, like, a grown woman's life, it has more value than that of even a fetus, of even, like, a late-term, like, baby, like an actual baby growing inside of them. I've already confirmed that is my personal view, and that is because all babies, unfortunately, have less, in my worldview, have less value than an adult. Now, sure, babies are cute. Like, if there was a scenario where I had to save a doctor or a baby, like a full-grown doctor or a little crying baby, it would suck. It's a shitty scenario. I don't want to have to choose between either. But the doctor, objectively, in my moral system, does have more value to life. Now, that doesn't mean that my emotion that I would feel, because, oh, it's a baby, would make me instead choose the doctor. Maybe I would, not everybody is a perfectly rational actor where they would save. The value of the fetus is over the mother? No? Is that your moral system? That's definitely not mine. What? No, wait, no. The value of the fetus is definitely not over the mother. No, never.
Doing the right thing was never about convenience. That's the whole reason it's a virtue.
Well, I don't believe in virtue. So here's the problem. He's arguing from his moral system here. I've already established that I have a very different moral system, because morals are subjective. They are not objective. There is no such thing as objective morality. The only, like, even, I think literally anything can be morally justified. Like, rape is, like, the one thing that I can think of where it's, like, hard to morally justify it. But then there's also the scenario of, like, if they're, like, what if the world's gonna explode and kill everybody on Earth, if you don't rape this woman. There's, like, that scenario, I guess, if you want to dream that one up. But realistically speaking, rape is, like, the one thing you can never morally justify, but literally anything else in the whole universe you can morally justify in some way, shape, or form. Even killing. Especially killing. He's trolling in the video. The actual John Doyle says that if the mother's life is in danger, abortion is justified. Yeah, and I know he said that. He said that at the beginning of the video. The problem is that like, whenever he says, "Yay, cool, Alabama banning abortion," in that scenario, the woman's life is going to be put at risk because abortion is illegal, 100%. And even though those people are a statistical anomaly, it sucks. Hold on. Vosh just DM'd me. Okay, cool. Nice meme. All right. Let's continue.
It's the nobility of sacrifice. That's why we're emotionally moved when we hear...
Pig Puncher, don't tell me you wouldn't date Vosh. I wouldn't date Vosh? What? Wait. You guys know that I'm, like, 100% straight, right? Like, there's no man in the universe that I would date. A trans woman is a woman. And I would probably date a trans woman. But, like, a cisgender man... there's no cisgender man in the universe I would date, so, I mean, I'm sorry. Not even Vosh, chat. I'm about to get a lot of angry emojis in chat, but, you know. Donger Ganger says, I'm straight and I would totally date Vosh, then you're not straight. Don't lie to me, you've told me your secrets. What? Chad Boris. Don't joke about anything like that. Personal liberty, but only if it doesn't contradict my beliefs. Wait, is that at me? I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Posh or OTP. Oh, good God.
Like, from last summer, Victor Mosqueda, this 22-year-old guy hiking alongside a river in Sequoia National Park, 5-year-old boy that he was not related to, falls into an aggressive river, starts to drown, and apparently, despite the fact that according to Victor's family that was there with him, Victor could not swim, Victor is the first one to jump right into the river to save the boy that he had never met before, and he's...
Sure. The child's life has value in his moral system. This anecdotal example doesn't really support your argument. Respect Pig Puncher's heteronormative ways. Yes, please, respect them. I do more than, like, literally anybody. Like, most people in the world haven't done as much as I've done for LGBT people, okay? Can I at least get a heteronormative pass so I can live my heteronormative life? Do you think that there is an argument if they are in belief that life starts at conception, that they should advocate fertility clinics, that they should advocate for fertility clinics should be illegal as well, since they are purposefully trying to make a life through the deaths of however many others? Yeah, probably. I mean, they would be morally, like their morals would not be consistent. But under their personal view. However, for me, I don't really care about that. Like, it doesn't bother me. Pig Puncher's a good ally. Good. Pig Puncher, what have you done? I'm doing it right. Well, I'm about to be doing it whenever I cover his LGBT pride is child abuse video. I do a lot of pro-LGBT shit, okay? I've done a lot for the LGBT community, all right? Can we all acknowledge that? Thank you.
He's able to hand the boy over to his parents before he went under for the last time, and he drowned in that river. What does
that sucks.
That mean? Victor had no relation to that child, no obligation to risk his life for that child, no obligation to inconvenience himself for that child, but he did it anyways, no hesitation.
Mm-hmm. In his personal... Wait, what? Wait, no, in his personal, subjective morality, he saw the child's struggle or the child's life as worth putting his life in danger in order to try to save the child. And, well, he seems like it didn't work out too well for him. But this isn't like an example of like, oh, so morality is objective. No?
He couldn't even swim, didn't flinch. He just jumped right into that river. He was on a trip with his own family. He had his own interests, his own goals, his own hobbies. None of that mattered to him in that moment.
Would you do the same thing, though, John Doyle? Would you do the same thing? I don't know if you can swim or not. Most people can swim. Would you do the same thing? You would? Okay. Most people would probably would, but that doesn't mean that objectivity and morality are intertwined, you know? Well, also, a lot of people say they would, but then they probably wouldn't. Like, I don't know, if you saw a child in, like, a roaring river, and it's like, I don't know, like, a lot of people say they would put their lives in danger in order to, like, save a bunch of people, but then they would pussy out at the last second. I'm not saying it's necessarily you, all right? I'm not saying that, but there's a lot of conservatives who walk around and say, man, all there needs to be is a good guy with a gun. If I was at that school shooting, I would be fine. Or I would save the day. I would shoot the shooter, and I would be the hero. I would put my life in danger to save everybody. But in reality, people freeze up, they get scared, they run away. Bo of the Fifth Column did a really good video on it. It's a really good video. I think it's called like the problem with the good guy with a gun. Mental health is the problem, not guns. Well, the problem is mental health is an issue that can't be just snapped away, and having guns around makes it so people with bad mental health can get their hands on guns. And it's not a good thing when people with bad mental health get their hands on guns. This guy ain't the real John Doyle. It might not be, but he's making arguments that a lot of conservatives and people like John Doyle would probably make, so there's no reason not to acknowledge them. They're good arguments to debunk.
Victor liked to play guitar. Think about that. Think about everything that makes you who you are. Your favorite Christmas movie, your favorite holiday vacation spot, first time you skinned your knee.
Buy a bearer bond to put a bullet in your best guy's gun, Pig Puncher. Amazing. Good meme.
How you like to go through your nighttime routine, whether or not you like coffee.
Hold on, let's rewind.
Couldn't even swim, didn't flinch. He just jumped right into that river. He was on a trip with his own family. He had his own interests, his own goals, his own hobbies. None of that mattered to him in that moment. Victor liked to play guitar. Think about that. Think about everything that makes you who you are. Your favorite Christmas movie, your favorite holiday vacation spot, first time you skinned your knee, how you like to go through your nighttime routine.
This is a real nice feels argument. Like you know, it's supposed to make you feel very emotional. You know, like this guy had so much he had done in like the subjective morale. So what I'm getting from this is the idea that in a universe or in the subjective morality viewpoint that this guy. It's supposed to make somebody like that feel really upset, so why would he sacrifice himself? The issue is, this is a feels argument, and I imagine you say that feels arguments are bad, because that's what the libtards do. That doesn't make feels arguments any less valid, but this one isn't, because, well, this isn't really a point that goes against, that really goes against being pro-life. Feels aren't valid? Feels aren't valid? I don't know, if you say feels aren't valid, that kind of just makes you a dick, John Doyle. Like, I know there's the meme that, like, facts don't care about your feelings, but if you really believe that, then you're just kind of a dick. That's the issue. I love to argue from facts and not feels, because I know that conservatives always like to say facts don't care about your feelings, but at the same time, conservatives are fucking assholes. I see conservatives as subhuman. I know it's kind of mean. I don't care. Facts don't care about your feelings. But no, feelings are valid. Obviously, the feelings of a Nazi who feels like black people all need to die is not valid as like the feelings of a woman who doesn't want to be forced by the government to carry a pregnancy to term. These aren't comparable, but, you know. Literally every argument is based on one's personal feelings. Yeah, because subjectivity. Facts don't care about Pig Puncher. Nice meme.
Whether or not you like coffee, all of that is unique to you. Yeah, obviously, you know, everybody's special. It's cliche. Maybe you're not special. Maybe you're average. Maybe you're even below average. What does that even mean? I don't know.
Means you're John Doyle.
Everything about life, everything about this experience we have is special.
Got him. Haha, left wing destroyed. Libtard destroyed, chat. Amazing.
And it's valuable. There's value in being happy. There's value in being sad, because that means that you cared enough about something for it to have affected you, and that is beautiful. That is human. That's human life, and it's all valuable, and it's instinctual. Victor
No, okay. So here you're comparing like grown adults to other grown adults. We like under like my moral system and the moral system of most pro-life people. The issue is the reason, or one of the reasons I should say, because there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons why like a baby and a fetus and a zygote and like a and like an actual adult are not comparable, and that their lives do not have equal value is because of their experiences and of their value. People who've had more experiences like living on have more value because of what they've learned and what they can contribute. A baby has had none of those experiences. Sure, there's tons of like potential there, but someone who's already contributing to society, and I do, even though I am not a reformist, I am a revolutionary who wants to tear down the societal structure that we now live by. I still, in the world that we live in, want people who are best, who contribute most to society, to live on. So if I'm going to choose somebody who contributes less to someone who may contribute an amount one day to somebody who already is contributing, I'm going to choose the person who's already contributing. That's my view.